I greet everyone who would be seeing this video. So, we're currently in a hyperinflationary period in Nigeria. Inflation is crazy. And what is inflation, you might ask? I'm sure everybody directly or indirectly knows the meaning of inflation. Inflation is simply the phenomenon or the process by which the price of goods are on the steady rise. That is, you could buy something for 200 naira today, and by tomorrow or next week, it's already 500 naira. Goods and services increasing in price. That is simply what inflation is. And everybody, both the male and the female, already know that inflation is something not to joke with. Incomes are not going as high or as fast as inflation is going. And this is simply leading to the poverty or to the impoverishment of both the rich and the poor. So, the pertinent question which arises now is, how can you cushion the effect of inflation on your wealth as a Nigerian? And the truth is, inflation is a global scale phenomenon. That is, it is happening in Nigeria, it is happening in anywhere in the world that you may find yourself in. But the only problem is that it is happening way faster in Nigeria and other African countries. Inflation has a lot to do with the leadership of a country and the financial policies that these leaders put into the system. The leadership gets to decide what is the tax rate, what is the interest rate. When I say interest rate, I mean when you borrow money from the banks, how much are you going to pay back on top of it? And in what time frame are you going to pay back that extra money? It's called interest, the extra money you pay on money that you borrowed. So the interest rate is determined by the leadership through the central banks. And then another thing that also causes inflation is when we have low productivity. Low productivity is when the people or the citizens of a country are not able to produce enough things to meet up with the consumption that they have. That means you want to eat rice, but you're not producing enough rice. You want to eat yam, you're not producing enough yam. You want to drive a car, but you don't even produce cars. So what this means is that the price of this thing will always be higher than many people can easily or readily afford, because we all know that when the demand is high and the supply is low, the direct impact is that the price will be high. It now goes to the highest bidder. Becomes an auction process where the suppliers are only going to sell it for the highest price possible to the richest customers. So this makes it very expensive for the other people. So the question, how do you cushion yourself from the effect of inflation in these current times? I want you to know that inflation has been a constant thing that has been happening for the longest of time. It happened during our parents' time, it happened during our grandparents' time, and it happened during our great-grandparents' time. Inflation is a consistent thing that is a feature of the type of governance system that we operate. And why do I say that it is a feature of the governance system we operate? Nigeria has been, since independence, under a governance system that is dictated by the European system. Well, what do I mean by this? It means that we borrow our governance system from the Europeans or the Americans, or in general, the Westerners. They are the ones who give us the format of leadership that we use. And in their organization of leadership, inflation is a feature and not a bug. Why, you may ask? Inflation is a feature because that is how they maintain control over the people. That is how they can keep the people obedient to the government. It is a very, very, very backward system in the sense that it does not allow for the development of human capital to the highest possible point. So the European governance system is one that seeks to reduce the abilities or the control of the individuals or the masses so that the government can have even more power over the masses. And we can understand it better in Nigeria if we observe how this current system this current regime is constantly enacting policies that will make us poorer and unable to afford things. Because when you are able to afford things easily, you become much better as an individual. You have more ability to develop your senses. You can buy better education. You can buy better food for yourself. You can buy even free time for yourself to indulge in self-cultivation or self-development. In a situation where you have little money to buy things you need, that means you have to work harder to earn more. And when you're working harder, it means you're only in the service of the government, because the government are the ones who have the ability to create money. And in a situation where that government is not a government that is interested in improving the lives of the people, that is where we have a problem. When you have a better government like China does, that cares about the people, you can see that the government makes investment into critical infrastructures that would enable the people become more productive. That is, they give them cheap electricity, cheap roads, very good roads, cheap education, and very high quality healthcare. So these things are basically the things that hold up the population and help them to create the best possible lives for themselves. But in Africa, we have a governance system that falls under the European colonization, which never ended. So that means we are going to be in a state of perpetual inflation, because inflation is something that gives control, more control to the government. So yeah, we're back to the question. How do you protect yourself from inflation in these current times? To protect yourself from inflation in these current times, everybody must become a supplier. Like I explained, inflation makes the demand very high, but it makes the supply very low. And when the supply is very low, the price goes higher and the supplier can sell at the highest price possible. So that means the supplier gets rich and richer because he's selling at the highest possible price he can possibly get. So when the supplier is selling at the highest possible price, what does that mean? It means that there is an incentive for everybody to become a supplier, everybody to become a producer. But considering the fact that our government doesn't provide us the necessary infrastructural development to enable us to become suppliers who can create value and become suppliers of value, that leaves us with very little options as to how to become suppliers of value. So the last option on how you can become a supplier of value to be able to earn the highest price possible during this inflationary period is to become a commodities investor. Yes, you heard me right. To become a commodities investor. So you ask me, what is a commodity? Well, a commodity, like the name says, is something that is needed for human existence, something that is needed to continue life, to make life continue without hassle, right? So a commodity could be the food you eat, a commodity could be the clothes you wear, or whatever it is that is used to make the clothes you wear. A commodity could be the metals, could be the oil for your car, could be the energy for your industry. So these things are commodities. They are basically the base materials used to produce finished goods and services that human beings need to survive. So that being said, everybody has to become a commodities investor. Why? Because the governments of the West and the governments of Africa are currently involved in creating inflationary policies that ensure that the price of goods and services go even way higher than it currently is. So in order to do this and protect yourself and your family and your wealth from these policies, it is important that this money, which loses value due to inflation, that you convert this money to commodities. Because right now the world is in a place where the real value is in the products and services you purchase with money, and then the less value is the money you use in purchasing these products and services. So everybody has to produce something, or at least own something that can be used to produce something. So yeah, that is the goal. That is the way out. You have to become a commodities investor. So on my next videos, I'm going to be walking you through the process of becoming a commodities investor and how to protect yourself from the inflation and also increase your wealth. So thank you very much. This is Iwebike Finance, and I'm going to be seeing you people more often.